Welcome to part 5 of this 5 to 6 part series. I'm not sure. In this video, we'll take all the patterns we already made and put them together to actually create this mosaic of patterns. And we'll also add some detailing to make it look like a real pen on paper, which is, I mean, it's overkill since it's supposed to be wrapping paper, but if you want to use it as a material that isn't wrapping paper, that's more actually just doodles, then that part will actually be of use. Yeah, so let's just get right into it. So, where did we leave off? We finished all the patterns and we need to bring them all together. We'll start making the main shape. So we want to make the shapes in which the actual patterns that we just made will show up. I want it to look pretty random, so how about I search for random? Nice. Tile random 2, I believe, is my best bet in this case. I'm going to leave it at 10 by 10. Oopsie. And I'm going to change the interstice thickness. First of all, I don't really want it to be beveled, right? Let's go for a little bit more space in between. Yeah, looks about right. What we want to put in here is slant to make it more irregular, because I have no interest in it being like this. So I'm going to slant the living bejesus out of it. And then I want to get rid of the bevel because I don't need that. That's about it. Okay, cool. Now, believe it or not, I'm going to warp this. So unexpected. I'm going to do spots and just leave it the way it is and warp with a little tiny bit. I just want the lines to look irregular. This might even be too much, to be honest. I just want it a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Okay, the idea is if we look at the end result, I have an edge around each not square polygon, and then white in between. So we're going to end up needing a mask to get that, which we'll do with a bevel. It's a teensy little beveling distance. It's really not a lot. Take that into a threshold again to get a mask out of it. Pretty big mask. Now I don't want it to have rounded edges, so I'll go into the bevel again and change the corner type to angular. There we go, that's better. The entire thing is going to happen using flood fill. I don't really know where to place this without it being kind of a pain. What we're going to do is use the flood fill mapper again and just put in all these patterns. So we'll do flood fill mapper grayscale, and we have 13 patterns. So we're going to go into the first one and have room for 6. We want to put in all these patterns into the flood fill mapper. I'll just do that first because it's easier to see what's going on once you have them in there. Ooh, what a great moment to use portal nodes to make this look pretty. Let's do that. Okay, portal. Sorry, dot node, I guess. And then we'll call it pattern 1. Then we'll do okay, cool. Yes, let's do it. Okay, we want dot node pattern 1. that's the first one. So there we have our first 6 patterns. First of all, let's set everything up in here and then I'll duplicate it for the rest of them. Number 6, shape size, random. Yeah, I want it to be, I want it to vary. Okay, we have our size. I'm gonna scale the living shit out of this, but add scale random. Something like that. So you can already see here that the mapper maps to the exact same spot pretty much every time. So if I want it to actually show me different parts of the patterns that I made so that it doesn't actually look repetitive, I need to change something. So what I did was add a position offset. So something along these lines. It doesn't really matter, it just needs to be something. And rotation, I definitely want to do. Okay, there, yeah. So I'll duplicate this guy because I want the settings to be the same, but I'm going to take the rest of the patterns. So we need pattern 7. So I'm missing one spot, so I need to go in and make it 7. Here we'll take the 12 and 13. Okay, cool. So now we have both of these, and I want to bring them together kind of randomly. So what I'll do is take this flood fill and create a mask, a pretty random mask that'll just end up blending between these two. So I'm going to end up bringing these together. Okay, so I want to flood fill to random grayscale. Sorry, nope. I always open the wrong one. Flood fill to grayscale, where I can actually make adjustments. So we'll do luminance random a bunch. And it doesn't really matter because I want a completely black and white 0-1 mask. Obviously I don't want to mix them, half mix things. So I'm going to once again take my histogram select and bump the contrast completely up and just come up with, just see what mask, just play around with it until I get a mask that feels really random. I don't want to have a whole lot of things next to one another, but it really shouldn't matter. I like, well, this seems like, okay, it seems very random. So that'll be our mask for this. And now we have, instead of this one, which you can tell immediately that it's way too repetitive, or this one, same thing. Boom. Bring them together. And now it looks really nice and random. I love it. It's so pretty. Okay, so the thing that I said before, that I don't like the way that the lines are in between. It just, everything looks too dark, and I think it would look a lot nicer if the edges were, if we had edges around each polygon and then went back to white everywhere in between. So that's why we have this mask. So the whole point is we take this and then we make a thinner version of it, and then we can subtract it, or whichever blending mode will end up being the right one. I don't know why I can't actually understand blending modes. I'm pretty sure this is not going to work. I'm going to have to end up, oh yes it did, okay. It was divide. I need to figure out what divide actually does. That's actually it. Am I missing anything? No, okay, yeah. That's how we bring the pattern together. But this is boring. I mean, it's fine, it's cool. I can use this. If I want to use this as a wrapping paper, then it already works. But I want to use it as a wrapping paper material. Actually, I don't, because I don't have any reason to use it, but I still want to make it. So I want to make it look like paper and actually look like there's pen strokes on it, which is, oh, it's going to look so cute. Let me take the output so that we have something nicer here. Holy smokes, that was wrong. What the what is going on? Ew. Oh, interesting. We are going to frame this and call it main pattern. Doesn't really make a difference, but I think I'm going to give it a different color so that it at least doesn't look like all these patterns. We'll take this and we're going to blend in a bunch of different noises in different ways. So let's get a grunge. Leaks. Yeah, I like that. And we won't leave it like that though. Just bump some things. Wait. Yeah. Shape contrast, crispiness. I'll want to take this. Is there a better way to do this? Maybe I should put it around here. Okay, this I'm going to use with I'm going to practically tile it every time. A few times. Yep, and then I'll warp it. Okay, I'm going to take another Gaussian noise with a bigger scale and warp it. I'm going to warp quite a bit. I mean, it's not really necessary. And if not, maybe I will just use this. I think that's kind of cooler. Because what I'm doing, I'm creating kind of like directional lines, which I was planning on rotating based on the tiles in the pattern. So I'm going to add a little bit more variation by blending this with another noise. So I'll take the grunge map, this one, right? I always accidentally grab this one when I'm looking for something completely different. But let's do something like that. Okay. Yeah, because I don't want it to be everywhere. I might take these settings a little bit. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's just for some more randomness. So now we want to add this to our current pattern. And by add, I mean literally add. Okay, nice. So, right, okay, it's too much. It's definitely too much, but I like it. It gives that just the feeling that there's more ink some places and less in other places, and it just feels random. I like it a lot, but I don't need that much of it probably. So actually, you know what, I'm pretty sure I messed that up, and I actually do need it to be the other way around and do a little twist. Okay, yeah, it might still be too much. It's a lot of really subtle stuff. I want to add, so there's some of these have so much black that I need the black to really have some detail so that it looks handmade. So I'm going to add some scratches. There's a nice little scratch thingy here, and I'll add it with another grunge map. I'm going to take this guy and bring it, I want it to be a bit more contrasty, but I want it smaller. So I'm just gonna go every time, the wrong one, divide. Okay. Why? Am I alone? Why can't I remember that? It's just such a problem. Okay, now it comes in here. I'm not gonna do copy for this. I'm gonna do, let's look, see here the scratches. So we have before, after. Yeah, I like that. That's fun. Okay, but I feel like these scratches are too small. Let's see. I could do it like this again. Divide. So good. So freaking smart. Okay, so now it's much smaller. Our next step, that's quite a bit of grunge and stuff, but we're gonna do more because I still haven't done the real actual pen stroke type things, which I'm also gonna use for a normal map. So we'll try that first. Okay. The main problem that I still see with this material, if I want it to look like somebody actually did it with a pen, one thing that always happens is when you use a pen a lot, like a black pen, it'll smear a bit, like a little bit too much ink will come out, so you'll have little smears in all directions. And I want to have that, because here obviously all I have is aliasing, which isn't exactly something that looks like it was made by a pen. So I want to break up all of the lines here. Everything that looks a little too perfect, I want actual irregularities along the lines. So what I'm gonna do is use tiny little dots to kind of smear the lines. We'll do that with a fractal thumb base is what I want. And I'll take the roughness up and min level. Something like that. Oh yeah, okay. Good. Then I'll do a histogram select, but take only contrast up first of all. There we go. Okay, there. Bunch of points, bunch of dots. Now, this is right the way I want it, but I want to... So my issue is I want to smear inward and outward. So I want to smear from black line. I want the black lines to smear, but I also want it to look like white kind of bleeds into black. So I have to do kind of two different approaches and then bring them together. So my first approach, I'm going to invert this. I want this to, I want even more dots. I want it to be, so I'll transform again, divided by 2. So I'm going to start with trying to break up the lines by having white spill into black, and then I'll do the same thing for black to spill into white so that we end up with a completely random irregularity on all edges. So my plan for that is to make these dots quite a bit smaller. So I divided this by 2. Then I want to use a distance node and use our actual pattern as a mask input. You can't really tell what I'm doing at this point. Wait, first of all, this is ridiculous, so I'll take this down. But we're using the mask to drive this. And now I want to blend the pattern with these little blobs. So if I were to look in here, our pattern used to look like this, and now we added this. So it's basically only where white was, but kind of spills out. So we're really making it appear mostly on edges and generally in the white area. So once again, it's kind of irregularity coming in. I might take it down. It seems like a little much. And now we want to do the same thing, but inverted. And this I'm going to move it a little bit so that we're not using the exact same pattern. Then we'll also take this distance once again. Okay, but what we want to do, since it's the opposite, we're going to invert this guy and we will blend it with multiply because now we're darkening our pattern. And once again, let's see, sorry, I'll take this guy. First of all, we're adding to this result as input, but you see I'm adding dots to the irregularities to white, which is not what I wanted. I'm using the wrong input right now. I need the non-inverted guy as a mask. And now we're adding black. Let's see, before. And now we're adding black spilling into white. There we go. Okay, it only affects the edges, which is really cool. Okay, so I don't want it to be everywhere though. This is a little bit too much. So I'm going to use another grunge map to kind of break that up. I'll use grunge map 8, which allows for a lot to actually come through. I do want a lot of it, but I just don't want it to be completely full. So I'll mask it like this. And I'll also use this here. Nice, 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 nice. Now the whole thing is inverted. We want it to go back to normal. What I like about it is that there's no pure black, which is important. Anything that's pure black or pure white looks fake. Can't really get pure black or pure white in the real world. So if you're doing it digitally, you kind of have to decide to get rid of it. So one part of that, I'm gonna maybe push it even further and take our darkest up a bit, even more. This is basically just adding irregularities that might have happened through ink being ink or paper being paper or whatever. But now we want to add the directional pen strokes. Basically just going to work on the normal map. So I'll frame this and call it ink irregularities. The first thing I want to do, first of all, is if I were to put a bunch of ink on a piece of paper, you'd have the paper kind of dent inward. So I'm going to add like a tiny little bevel around the actual shape. We'll start with that. So first I'll invert it and add a bevel. The bevel is going to be tiny, very, very little, tiny. That gives us a little bit of an indentation. I'm actually going to add a little frame to that as well. Indentation. Just so I know what's going on. Okay, so pen markings. I'm going to do this with fur because I want directional markings with some variation. I'm going to scale this quite a bit. We want to blend this with another fur, but this time it'll be fur 2. Yeah, we'll leave it the way it is and we'll add these. Okay, so my idea here is, like very, very fine cross hatching to kind of get everything to be black. So this is what I'm trying to emulate here. So we have these two directions with the randomness of this actually flowing like that. And then we'll want to add another fur. So I want to bring in all directions of pen strokes. This is just going to be really random cross hatching. So we're going to blend this second fur type with min blending mode. And then we're going to bring this one in again with just a little rotation. With add. And what I want to add to this is kind of I want to highlight the places where somebody went over multiple times. So I'm going to take the highlights of this, something like this. Yeah, take the highlights, and I'm going to blur them with a small amount. Okay, sort of like that. And then I'll histogram select. And now we're going to blend with a purlin noise, really big purlin noise. So just to add randomness, so we have parts that are going to be more extreme and less extremes. What we're going to do is blend our current thing here. Using this as a mask, we're going to add white. So we're going from this to this. It's a very small detail. I'm going to make it tile patch with a tiny amount of disorder. That Rotation variation, we actually want quite a bit of, and we don't want that much of it. Do I want my mask precision? Maybe like that. Okay, those are the pen markings. Okay, so we'll take our current pattern and blend it with the pen markings with subtract. And this is actually pretty much going to be the normal map. Now we want to actually bring in another little bit of normal information, and that's going to be a little bit of paper irregularities, which I'll use a fractal sum base again with, I want it to be pretty rough, and I'll just plain old use this for normal information. I'll take it down a shit ton. I'll take it. Then I want to make the normal map out of this. This one is also going to have just a tiny amount normal information. Okay, and then I'm going to do a normal combine to bring those together. But we'll do whiteout low quality. Sure. That's basically our normal information. That's it. I'm going to put that here. Frame it with pen markings. That's our normal information. Now we want to do roughness and metallic. So for roughness, let me do a thing first. I like the idea of the paper being off-white. So I'll take that. I'll do like a little bit of a cream color. Yeah, that's all right. That'll work. So I'm actually going to also take the little, the information that I just made for the normal map and use it to modify the color as well. Because I mean, there's those little lines that I feel like will actually add a little nice detail to everything else. So let's take our result here and blend it. And we will divide it, but just a tiny bit. It'll actually look like those parts where you didn't manage to really fill it in. Ooh, I like it. Okay, cool. That's good. This to here. Now, as I said, we actually need to go into roughness and metallic now. For metallic, we're going to take this guy, invert it, and use some levels to kind of play with it. So maybe I'll switch this to a rounded cube. Because we actually, now we want to start looking at the characteristics of the material. So currently we have nothing of interest. Light doesn't do shit. So we will bring let's take this into metallic, get rid of this guy. And you see that already has a little bit of something going for it. This would be just a bit too much metallic, so I'm going to take it down a notch. It's about there. And then the more important part is going to be roughness. So for the roughness, I'm just going to take this because it kind of makes sense. So I want, where there's pen, I want it to be less rough. So dark makes sense. And where there's paper, I want it to be rougher. So white also makes sense. I just don't want it to be as extreme as it looks right there. So this is kind of a dumb way to do it, but I'm going to use a gradient mapper for this and just take the black up a bit. Could be doing this with levels, but for some reason I'm having issues with levels right now. So I'm going to do the dumb method. This would be our roughness map. Kind of feel like it could still be, it could stay darker. Let's go about here. That looks good to me. Am I missing anything? I think that's it, right? Okay. Okay, so that's our finished wrapping paper material.